Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing today? Pray that everyone is doing well. Welcome to Astute Queen Bee's Thoughts. I'm Astute Queen Bee, and welcome to my channel. We are considered the Royal Gladiators over here, and our channel emoji is the crown because we are kings and queens over here. But we also are Royal Gladiators because we never give up and we never give in. We will fight for what's right at all times, even if we feel that we are wrong. I pray that this finds everyone well. And what I'm going over today is controlling your anxiety. This is chapter 4. It's called Knowing Your Triggers. So I would appreciate it if anyone comes through the building. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not. Like I said, I like to have conversations and I like to talk about stuff that we everyday people go through. Superstars go through it too, but I rather talk about us everyday people because a lot of us suffer from anxiety, PTSD, a bunch of different anxiety issues and fear issues, and I like to dig deep down into it and check it out. I'm no therapist or none of that, but what I do try to do is share what I learn or what I read about to help me deal with my anxiety or my stress levels. And I believe sometimes they can help others as well. So that is what I like to do. So I'm going to get to reading this. And this is chapter 4, part 1, because I read this in two parts because it's so long. And I know if I do it live, I will not get through one chapter because we'll be too busy talking about it. So I hope that by the time you get to the middle of this chapter, that you are enjoying the content. So if you are enjoying it, I would appreciate if you hit that like button before you leave out of the gates of the queendom. I would appreciate that very much. Give me 1 second. My eyes is tearing already. Hold on. Let me get it together. And for all my royal gladiators, feel free to drop some crowns in the chat for yourself. Let's see. I know you think I'm overreacting about the silent. Excuse me. I know you think I'm overreacting about the silliest things. But to me, those silly little things seem like the doom the world could bring. Tiffany L. Gansey. Mm-mm. Anxiety can engulf you in one sudden bout of panic, or it could build up over time as stress. Either way, you may already know the cues for what for when your negative thoughts are starting to grow, making you overwhelmed, scared, and trapped. What if you could find a button that simply says stop? Identifying your negative triggers is your stop button. In this chapter, I will help you find them. Look at methods for dealing with your fears and weaknesses and techniques to overcome future anxiety or panic attacks by controlling your thoughts, emotions, and behavior. This chapter says you are not alone. Stay motivated and overcome your anxieties. Ariana Grande is your inspiration. Hmm. Ariana Grande may be wildly successful and famous, but she's also a person dealing with anxiety and make no efforts to hide the fact. As a mental health advocate, Her message to others coping with anxiety and depression related conditions is to end the stigma and to reach out for help. Ariana has made no effort to hide her anxiety and the stress she deals with, stating that the road to recovery is neither straightforward nor fun, but one that you must travel travel based on commitment and a strong will to recover. Admitting to dealing with PTSD due to the 2017 terroristic attack at her concert in Manchester, England. This star is determined to heal and inspire others to follow her path by staying true to themselves and realizing that self-worth. One of the most successful tools for dealing with your anxiety triggers is acceptance. Acknowledging your condition and then for help is how you set yourself in the right direction, facing the path to recovery. Ariana Grande is on that path. Are you ready to follow her? Okay. What are your anxiety triggers? Your profound emotional reaction towards an event includes conversations or anything else emotionally disturbing, is what it means to be triggered by anxiety. Remembering past traumatic events can cause distressing reactions, make those agonizing memories emotional triggers. We all experience discomfort brought on by remembering an incident, something we said or did, or an uncomfortable situation we had to face in the past that was embarrassing or even upsetting. Although unpleasant, these memories do not incite profound, disruptive, and disturbing mental reactions. If you are not dealing with mental health disorders, those that do are classified as emotional triggers and will profoundly affect people with anxiety conditions. Emotional triggers can damage your mental state and may lead to a trauma that can cause lasting damage when left untreated. Someone experiencing a traumatic emotional trigger blanks out, loses focus, and zones out of the present situation. Their mind may get transported back to that traumatic event that caused that emotional trigger to develop. They become trapped in their fear, unable to break free and realize they are not in a dangerous situation the trigger has created in their mind. Now, y'all know a lot of people deal with anxiety and depression and PTSD, and we have to learn to start taking these things very seriously because people are going to get hurt if people don't understand the people that are out there. And there's a lot of people out there dealing with anxiety, PTSD, and stuff like that. And you don't know what a person is capable of doing when you back them into a corner. So just be mindful of that, y'all. Where was I at? A trigger can be internal, like a sudden thought that springs to your mind, prompted an avalanche of memories and emotions. Even the feel of a deja vu can turn into an emotional trigger because of the traumatic memory it could incite. People with PTSD are more vulnerable to triggers caused by external factors such as images or hearing about an event like the one that causes PTSD to develop. For example, being a victim of a terroristic attack may make you nervous about sudden sounds or being in crowds. That is one of the reasons trigger warnings are given at the beginning of content containing common emotional triggers, violence, scenes, blood, bombings, etc. Recent studies, however, despite the, I can't pronounce this word, particularity of trigger warnings, which we will discuss later in this chapter. Categorizing triggers. As I mentioned, there are two types of triggers, internal and external. An emotional cause, internal triggers. Sudden sensations you may experience physically that triggers a memory. External, sweating, a raise in heart rate, feeling tension, restless, nervous, angry, or feeling of dread are some of the physical sensations you may feel that are linked to your emotions to the past event. External triggers can be anything, a common incident that seems quite normal for some people, but traumatic if you are dealing with anxiety. External triggers are often linked to the past occurrence. A television show that deals with domestic violence can cause emotional triggers in someone who must deal with a violent spouse. In an argument, oop, lost my spot, that dredges up memories of traumatic times could turn into an emotional trigger and lead to an anxiety where the person loses control of that present situation and becomes trapped in a moment from the past because their minds have suddenly rebooted and are living in that traumatic incident once again. That's that deja vu, and that's that you're stuck in that thought. And that's not a good place to be because no telling what somebody could do to you if they ever get in that space. Emotional triggers are not always linked to a particular emotion. They can manifest from feelings of sadness, fear, disappointment, anger, and loneliness. Social anxiety and panic disorders are often the type of mental health conditions strongly associated with triggers. What are the most common and often unthought of factors that cause triggers? Understanding the reason behind a trigger will give you more power to conquer the trigger. Also, despite it being a common practice included triggering warnings for just about everything, anxiety triggers are not always based on sensitive issues. A person dealing with anxiety triggers is not always an emotional weak or overly sensitive individual. That perception is wrong. An emotional trigger can be based on fear that part of someone's reality or world or words that cause deep wounds mentally, wounds that are still sore and not healed. Emotional triggers are reminders of the horror that someone went through, emotional scarring that needs a chance to heal. Being affected by a specific stimulus makes you vulnerable to anxieties that can be triggered by a prevalent factor we often take for granted. Did you know that caffeine can be an emotional trigger for some people? I never knew that. It can be, especially since caffeine has the power to influence your central nervous system. Okay, coffee drinkers, check up on that one. Most of us love caffeine because it is absolutely to stimulate our system levels by upping our metabolism to make us alert, active, and ready to face the day with zest. However, think twice about overindulging in caffeine because two, much of a good thing can cause you harm. A side effect of too much caffeine can cause you to become nervous and even anxious if you aren't dealing with a mental health disorder. The biggest culprit of caffeine, which contains high levels of caffeine in, and in energy drinks. Hmm. Thyroid disease can affect your mood and cause anxiety. Did y'all know that? Did any of y'all know that? If you knew that thyroid disease can affect your mood and cause anxiety, put a 2 in the chat. I will check back later if I see any responses. I never knew that. Okay. The thyroid is a gland in your neck, a part of your endocrine system, the network of glands that secrete hormones. The thyroid secretes hormones that affect the function of your body, mainly thyroxine, T4, and whatever that other word is, T3, which influences your metabolism and the energy needs to, your food to digest. Oh, thyroid hormones are suspected of influencing the level of the mood hormone serotonin secreted from your brain, and therefore a possible link to anxiety and depression for some people. Hmm. Hyperthyroidism is a common condition that can occur when your thyroid gland is overactive. Heightening anxiety, steadiness, over if over irritability are often the symptoms. On the other hand, hypothyroidism, hypothyroidism, and okay, is an underactive thyroid gland linked to depression with the symptoms of heightened fatigue. Mm, that's why they always check in the thyroid glands. Okay, I get it now. Anxiety and depression are not only the symptoms of thyroid disease. Several physical symptoms, a change in your heart rate, hair loss, sudden weight gain, etc., indicates a gland problem. Your healthcare provider will evaluate you for symptoms before asking you to take tests to check the function of your thyroid gland and then narrow the results for a possible link to your anxiety. Child, you learn something new every day. And please hit the like button if you come in the building. I would truly appreciate it. Let's see. Alcohol can be less relaxing and more of an anxiety trigger. Glad I don't drink. Alcohol, when embedded in excess, can have the opposite effect of the perceived calming and relaxing quantities a glass of wine is thought to offer. Alcohol affects some people with anxiety badly and may aggravate their symptoms. Also, alcohol or substance abuse is a higher among people with mental health issues. The National Institute of Drug Abuse from 2020. Neglect of oneself and missing out on basic self-care can trigger depression. Do you often find yourself in your pajamas in the middle of the day, hair unbrushed, and skipping regular baths? These are signs that you may be dealing with depression or anxiety. Um, Conservatively and cultivating this behavior can lead to anxiety, making it a trigger. Not taking care of yourself and having inadequate hygiene often leads to low self esteem, one of the triggers of anxiety disorder. It is essential to take care of your your basic needs. Be well groomed and ensure your physical and mental needs are met healthily, contributing to your overall well-being. Therefore, neglecting oneself is a trait that takes away enthusiasm and can covertly indicate an individual dealing with depression. And like I said, a lot of people are dealing with depression these days, and it's a lot. It's really a lot. But I can lay in the bed all day, but I still got to get up and wash my tail. I don't know about other people, but I can't just lay there. Let's see, a lack of proper sleep can make you anxious. This is so true. I know this to be true. The amount of stress put on, excuse me, put on the importance of a good night's sleep is substantiated by research that clearly shows we need proper rest for our bodies and minds to recalibrate thoughts, rejuvenate and heal, and nothing beats a good night's sleep. The occasional all-nighter is not going to cause harm. Still, if you make it a regular habit to stay up all night, you will eventually experience mental and physical change. Cognitive changes could affect stress and anxiety caused by the lack of sleep. Hmm. Trauma, when experienced on a personal level, can become a mental trigger. And I am going over different triggers, and I'm going over the book of controlling your anxiety. So, hopefully, and I pray that these touch someone because I believe a lot of us need them. I don't care if you're a man, woman, or a child. A lot of us need them because a lot of us are dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety in our lives. Some people think they have it all together or pretend to have it all together and don't like to ask for help. So I'm my sister's keeper, so I do my best to try to help because this book helps me, and I have been told quite a few people it has helped them. So for those people, I hope you enjoy them. And for my newcomers, I hope you enjoy them as well. Let me get on back down to read. What I said? Okay. Um, okay. Traumas, when experienced on a personal level, can become a mental trigger. Trauma makes you vulnerable, and your physical, emotional self feels threatened. Commonly, the fight or flight reaction associated with anxiety is high when dealing with a particular incident or event causing you trauma. PTSD is a common condition related to trauma. Trauma can set you off a nervous disposition in you, making you sensitive to what you think are common everyday activities. Being in a crowded place or even hanging out with friends. That nervous disposition makes your unusual composure feel threatened when planning for these events, causing stress to build up and unnoticed to you. The nervousness that ensues the nervousness that ensues is a trigger increasing your anxiety. Social anxiety and stress triggers. Dealing with social anxiety can make social gatherings a trigger. It could be it could be a simple get together of friends or even meeting family. The anxiety will be genuine and cause you to become nervous and anxious at the thought of upcoming events. Your messy home could be a trigger for your anxiety. Dealing with anxiety related conditions can make, excuse me, I almost bit my tongue, y'all, can make seemingly mundane situations much more stressful than usual. A messy home is one. Someone dealing with anxiety will find the clutter in their home unbearable and clean it up will be prioritizing their schedule of things to get done. If that is the case, and you are too busy to get down to cleaning, the sight and the thought of clutter will keep making you more and more anxious on the subconscious level as you are daily work, as your daily work, excuse me. That nagging thought of a cluttered home will remain at the back of your mind like a trigger causing you to become more stressed. That's a fact. Dealing with your finances is a trigger for anxiety. Yes, it is. Your finances can be a trigger whether you are uh, whether on a shoestring budget or enjoying a comfortable lifestyle. Your anxiety can make it seem like a huge burden to keep track of and maintain your expenses and income. Overthinking about your finances will act as a trigger to cause you panic, stress, and anxiety. Just like cleaning your home will eliminate the trigger, you can reduce the amount of pressure you face with your monetary issues by constructing a plan. Draw up a financial plan that will help you to identify your expenses and income and keep track of changes, thus avoiding the stress of worrying about budgets, expenses, and balances. Hmm. Your relationship can become stressful. No kidding. Tension, a different a difference of options, and pressure can make relationship with the people you love an anxiety trigger. Despite loving those closest to you, there are times you cannot avoid the difference options or pressure put on you by partners, children, parents, incidents, events, situations dealing with family that cause you to become anxious or triggers. Tension is one of the biggest culprits. When left unresolved and ignored, as if often the case in family units, it can build up and explode into an unpleasant episode of anger, resentment, and frustration. If you are dealing with an anxiety disorder, such triggers can become unbearable, especially when linked to people you care about and are concerned. Conflict is unpleasant and hard to deal with as an anxiety trigger. A person dealing with anxiety will find conflict a hard to a hard to handle trigger that ignites their nervous disposition. Arguments in the workplace, with your apartment, or with a family member are triggers that negate the fight or flight reaction in you. Conflict can affect you when you are confused and overwhelmed. Even a disagreement online may set off your anxieties because you do not know how to deal with emotions. Learning to manage your reactions to a conflict will just be as effective as making a plan for your finances. Teaching yourself not to panic and to approach conflict calmly is a skill that will take time, but through effects, consequences, efforts, it's obtainable. It's simply it's simply case mind over matter. Triggers that are linked to general events. I think that's the last chapter, last part. I think. No, almost there. Okay. Events, situations, and reasons that make us unhappy angry, and frustrated can be more serious than you would give them credit. They could be responsible for your stress levels increase as triggers from the development of anxiety syndrome. It all depends on how you deal with these everyday stresses. Divorce, child, living home, a death, the end of a relationship, and other events that can ignite emotional distress and pain are often ignored or not acknowledged. However, the pain and the anguish, when not dealt with, will remain triggered by events or situations that refresh the hurt over and over until you develop an anxiety disorder. Ignoring a hurtful situation will not make it disappear, nor will getting busy and choosing to avoid thinking about a depressing problem for you. Acknowledging and accepting pain is the best method to prevent that pain from turning into a trigger that will affect your well being and quality of life. Triggers must be faced. Avoid them and running away from anxiety causing situations, preventing you from reaching a solution, and you must live with those provocations. Choose to be free. Hold on 1 second, y'all, while I get a glass of water. Okay, my people, I am back. I hope these are helping, and I hope y'all have really taken the time to listen. And if you're dealing with anxiety or PTSD or anything, put a put a put a 5 in the chat. I myself deal with anxiety and depression, so I know how it is. I know how it feels. I know it's no fun. It's definitely not fun when you're going through things in life and you have no control over them. It's no fun. I can tell you that. I know it myself. Been there going through it and still going through it. But you know what? God told me to do what I wanted to do until He does what He needs to do. So I'm gonna do that right now. Where was I at? Oh, you cannot outrun or hide from your triggers. Stop avoiding your triggers. It is causing you more harm than you know. More and more mental health experts and researchers are questioning the benefits of advising people with anxiety issues to avoid their triggers, with more leaning towards the practice of being harmful. Avoiding situations, people, and places that make us uncomfortable or seem harmful is an instinct and is another fail-safe mechanism linked to anxiety traits that help keep us safe when it is within the natural parameters. That means if I'm gonna tell you what I take that as. I always took that as if it's not your parameters. If you don't got to be there, don't go. Don't go. Stay away from people that bring the worst out of you, because they ain't nothing but the devil. Um, when dealing with anxiety and avoiding triggers becomes especially, excuse me, becomes essential. You try to prevent your panic attacks and anxiety from happening by staying away from particular triggers or potential triggers. Plus, there are plenty of support too, where trigger warnings are issues to help you decide about becoming exposed to a possible stimulus. But how long can you keep avoiding triggers and dealing with the problem connected to your avoidance behavior? For example, if you are dealing with social anxiety, how long can you avoid going out for public events or socializing before your relationship and friendships started to suffer? Hmm. Is it healthy to avoid triggers? During the process of avoiding triggers, you are also avoiding experiences that will help you overcome your anxiety and grow stronger. You are avoiding a significant portion of encounters that will shape and teach you to cope with life's unexpected twists and turns, which are necessary traits to help you overcome your fears and doubts, avoiding a lack of self confidence. When you avoid your when you avoid your anxiety triggers, are you not telling yourself you are weak and indicate an incompatible incompatible of facing incapable? Damn, what is wrong with me? I'm losing my mind, y'all. Sorry. How will you learn to cope with and get over your anxieties? Are you not telling yourself you are weak and incapable of facing and dealing with your fears? How much are you willing to sacrifice to avoid your triggers? Y'all gotta ask yourselves them questions. We can talk about that another day. Let me see. Taking the trouble to avoid your fear is a successful method of maintaining your anxieties and triggers. The new reasons surrounded that avoidance of anxiety triggers. There are many reasons for experts to advise against the new culture of avoiding anxiety triggers. Let's start with the obvious. One, it's nearly impossible to avoid triggers all the time. Unless you live in a bubble, how long can you keep avoiding your emotional triggers and attempt to live a normal life? It's nearly impossible, and that's a fact. Unless you walk around here medicated up and you don't feel nothing. Don't if you want to walk around it like that all the time, take some Zoloft. I promise you, that's exactly where you'll be. You'll be walking through life and won't be able to express your feelings. Been there, done that, never will do it again. Um, where was I at? Okay, let's say you were watching the evening news on the television, and a trigger warning comes up. Do you run away to the next room or ask the television to be turned so that ultimately no one in your family knows what the news is? Do you never go out for a party, a concert, or a social gathering with your partner because you are dealing with a sociophobia? Are you willing to test the limits of your relationship to avoid the triggers? Or will you try to conquer your fears, your anxieties while moving your life along? Facing your fears is all about dealing with anxieties, and avoidance certainly is not the healthy option. Emotional triggers can take place anywhere at any time, making them nearly impossible to avoid. That excuse me. The solution is to find a way to cope by exposing yourself to your fears. It is easier to fight an unknown enemy than deal with uncertainty. I think this will be the last page that I read. Um, Avoidance behavior leads to missing out on more than just your fear. You avoiding your company's New Year's Eve party because your fear of intimacy, too many hugs, and wishes of happy seasons. So you stay home alone while everyone you know attends the party. The next day you go to work and ask to see the pictures, and they are all amazing and show you what a fabulous party you missed. Not only did you avoid triggering your social phobias, but you avoided spending New Year's Eve with your friends and enjoying a feeling of belonging and togetherness instead of loneliness you felt spending that evening at home. Avoidance behavior can be a real bummer and disappointment because you miss out on so many life experiences that would be ultimately help you with your anxieties. You miss out on more treats that avoid your emotional triggers. You miss experiences, placed places, friendships, and being in a close relationship because you constantly try to prevent an emotional trigger. Still, chances are those emotional triggers up or will crop up at some time while some fabulous experience you miss cannot be replaced. 3. The longer and more you avoid triggers, the worse they get. Your goal is to heal your anxiety and not safeguard them. Avoiding triggers will only cause them to grow and thrive. Your pain will remain fresh and untreated as long as you avoid trying to heal. You become more sensitive to your fears because you have no exposure to them. Your emotional triggers and fears keep growing until you become a slave to them, seeking ways to avoid and hide from anything and everyone you fear will cause you anxiety. You barely realize you have created a whole new anxiety for yourself. The anxiety and the stress of advantage, avoidance, and deprivation of a life experience. Man, that is chapter 1. That is chapter 4, part 1, controlling your anxiety. Those are little tricks that you can use. You can ask your doctor about them. You can find other ways like to meditate, sometimes reading, sometimes just laying in silence can help you deal with your anxiety. But if you can't deal with too much silence, find some ocean water, some ocean sounds, some bird, I don't care, some whales, whatever. Find something to calm your spirit down. God's creatures will always calm your spirit down. Have a conversation with God while you're at it. Ask Him to give you another breath so that you can breathe and take your time and let yourself calm down before you get too out of control. So, I hope everyone enjoyed chapter 4, part 1 of dealing with and controlling anxiety. Please drop down in the comments. Let me know what you think and how you feel. I would truly appreciate it. I am not afraid of criticism. I accept it. If anyone don't believe or don't feel that way, let a sister know. I don't have a problem with that. Tell me what you think. Are you dealing with anxiety or depression or PTSD? If you are, let's have a conversation about it. Let's start a conversation down in the comments. I thank y'all all for coming through. Catch y'all on part 2. Y'all have a blessed and beautiful day, evening, or morning, whatever time it is you watch this. I thank God that He sent y'all my way, and I hope you are truly enjoying yourself. To all my sisters, much love, peace, and happiness. To my kings, salute, brothers. With that being said, this is 2 Queen B out, y'all.
I spent so many nights sleeping on me, but I finally realized I'm all that I need. I'm that girl couple on the side.